Hello everyone, this is Tetsuya. Thank you so much for watching my video again today. Today, I would like to introduce some Japanese idioms. The idioms I am going to introduce today are all based on Japanese custom or cultures. So including the background of those idioms, I am going to explain everything. I think it will be very interesting for the people who are interested in Japanese culture, customs, and also for the Japanese language learners. My video would be a very good opportunity for them to learn new expressions. Even for the people other than these people, the video would be hopefully interesting. Anyway, let me get started.
Okay, so the first idiom for today is have one's knees confront with each other. In Japanese, 膝を突き合わせる。膝を突き合わせる。or cannot be translated to English. This expression is most likely based on Japanese custom, possibly. In Japan, traditionally, when the people are seated in a formal situation, they are seated this way. If you have experienced a Japanese tea ceremony, you would have experienced or seen this before. During the Japanese tea ceremony, the people are seated in this form. So, if we imagine the situation in which two people or maybe more people are seated in this way, having their knees confront with each other, the view becomes like this. Now, some of you would feel some serious impression from this view. This is what this idiom, 膝を突き合わせる, having one's knees confront means. So, this idiom implies the situation people are going to discuss or talk about something serious thoroughly. Let me give you two examples. 1. They are speaking having their knees confront with each other. 2. Parents and their child are discussing the child's future, having their knees confronting with each other, thinking about what kind of school the child should go to. Okay. 膝を突き合わせる。膝を突き合わせる。Have one's knees confront. Did you get it? Now, let's move on to the next idiom. The next idiom is one's head cannot move up. In Japanese, 頭が上がらない。が cannot be translated to English. Well, it's not about some neck injury caused by traffic accident or something like that. Anyway, so I am not completely sure of the origin of this expression. This expression would be based on Japanese custom. In Japan, as you might know, to show respect to others, we bow. And making your head down shows the respect to others. Therefore, if your head doesn't move up, that implies the respect to others. This expression is specifically used when someone praises or respects other person's achievement, skill, good reputation, and so on. The example sentence is, my head doesn't move up toward her. I am so impressed with her astonishing programming skill. It may sound so weird in English expression, possibly, but it is just the literal translation of this idiom. Even when a Japanese person says that person's head cannot move up towards someone in Japanese language, that Japanese person can move up the person's head physically. Did I mess up your understanding by making a bit too complicated sentence? Anyway, once again in Japanese, 頭が上がらない。頭が上がらない。One's head cannot move up. Now let's move on to the next idiom. The next idiom is observe one's facial color. In Japanese, 顔色を伺う。顔色を伺う。を cannot be translated to English. In here, color does not mean the skin color, but actually the reaction, emotion you can read from other people's face. In Japan, as many people would know, the way people speak is implicit, not direct. So they don't express things by words directly. So the people always try to read other people's mind from their reaction, the movement of other people's faces, the tones of voice, and so on. The meaning of this idiom, observe one's facial color, is as you can guess now. Watch and observe the reaction of the person one is speaking to, in order not to discuss the feeling of the person. It is not only the Japanese who try to read other people's mind, but since Japanese try to do that more than non-Japanese people, this sort of idiom would have been created. Of course, there would be similar idioms in other languages though. Anyway, once again, 顔色を伺う。Observe one's facial color. Now let's move on to the next idiom. The next idiom is put out one's tail. In Japanese, 尻尾を出す。尻尾を出す。を cannot be translated to English. Well, you may ask, is the expression specifically for animals which have tails, right? In fact, this expression is for humans. Then again, you may be confused and wanted to ask, then do the Japanese have tails? Is it like the super size something in Dragon something of Japanese fighting anime? Well, no, of course not. This idiom is actually based on the old Japanese belief and the Japanese fairy tales. In Japan, there are two animals who are believed to deceive humans. One of them is foxes, and another one is raccoon dogs. Maybe a lot of people know foxes, but raccoon dogs would not be that famous because raccoon dogs seem to be from East Asia. In fairy tales, raccoon dogs and foxes transform to something, including humans. And when they fail to transform, they leave their tails and sometimes ears not transformed like this. Sometimes, after some time has passed since they have transformed, their transformation partially got cancelled and show the tail without returning the form of other parts of their bodies. Some Japanese anime show the transformation of those animals. You may have seen it maybe in some animes. Now let's move on to what this idiom means. I mentioned that it sometimes happens that sometime after they have transformed, the transformation is cancelled only at their tail part. This is the origin of the meaning of this idiom. So, this idiom, 尻尾を出す, 尻尾を出す, put out one's tail, means the person fails to hide something. And something is always something but, such as a crime, a lie, and so on. So, if I make two example sentences, they are like the followings. 1. The criminal finally put out his tail while the police was investigating the case. 2. Her boyfriend has been behaving really gentle so far, but when they were discussing their future and were telling each other's opinion about where to live, their opinions became different. At that time, he got angry and never listened to her opinion. Now he put out his tail, and she understood his hidden personality, so she decided to leave him, thinking he could cause more serious problems by his personality in future if she is with him. Well, both stories were negative. Anyway, once again, 尻尾を出す、尻尾を出す put out one's tail. Now let's move on to the last idiom for today. The last idiom is grind sesame. In Japanese, ごまをする、ごまをする。を cannot be translated to English. First, let me introduce Japanese food culture to help you understand better on this idiom. In Japan, traditionally, there are a lot of recipes to use sesame, and a lot of them use ground sesame as well. The Japanese even simply pour sesame or ground sesame on the white rice and eat it. So, in Japan, grinding sesame is traditionally very common. Of course, these days, ground sesame is sold like the ground pepper. So the Japanese seldom grind sesame by themselves. But when it comes to grinding some food, the most common thing which strikes Japanese people's mind would be sesame. Now, let me introduce what it means. Well, when we grind sesame by a mortar, we take this kind of pose. In our Japanese culture, this movement is similar to the movement of the person in suit in this picture. The person in suit is flattering his boss, his customer, and so on to make them feel good for his own benefit. Since the movement of grinding sesame and the movement of people flattering other people are similar, the Japanese people say ごまをする to mean this action. Basically, there is another potential origin of this idiom, but generally, in Japanese people's mind, this flattering movement comes up in their mind when it comes to ごまをする、ごまをする grind sesame. That's all for today's idioms. Was it interesting to know both the Japanese culture and the idioms based on that culture? What sort of idioms does your language have based on your culture? Waiting for you to share your language idioms. Thank you so much for watching my video up until here today. See you in the next video. Bye bye.